You may remember this story. How in 1984, a grocer in Dublin walked off the job for refusing to ring up 2 grapefruits that were brought to her checkout line. Her name was Mary Manning, and the reason for her refusal was in part due to some unjust work conditions at this grocery store. But she also made this refusal because the trade union of which she was a part had instructed all workers to refuse to handle or process any produce that came from South Africa. This was in the midst of apartheid, tearing apart a nation. And so a woman came to her line with 2 grapefruits and she said no, refusing to ring up these grapefruits. And as management placed her on a leave, 8 other co-workers walked out the door with her. 7 women and 1 man, and a strike began that day that continued for nearly 3 years. They became known as the Grapefruit Ladies, even the men among them. And in a particular twist to this story, it was just days into this strike when the Grapefruit Ladies were joined by a man named Nimrod Sejake. Sejake was an asylum seeker in Ireland. He fled there after being tried for treason alongside Nelson Mandela. And so as Sejake and the Grapefruit Ladies paced back and forth in front of the doors to this grocery store, he shared stories of the horrors and abuses of apartheid in South Africa, deepening the resolve of these workers and drawing attention to their cause. In yet another twist, the sustained protests that took place in Ireland drew the attention of one Bishop Desmond Tutu, who came and stood alongside the Grapefruit Ladies one day and who invited them to visit South Africa to see for themselves what was going on. Yet they were denied entry when they arrived at South Africa and deported back to Ireland. This got the attention of one Reverend Jesse Jackson, who flew to Ireland and marched with the Grapefruit Ladies in front of the grocery store doors. The strike ended in April of 1987 when the Irish government, as a whole, banned the importation of goods from South Africa, becoming the first Western nation to issue a complete ban of South African goods. Now, apparently in a recent memoir, Manning named that she knew little about apartheid when she took this stand. Her refusal had just as much, if not more, to do with standing up to unfair management practices in her workplace. Yet once she met Sejake, who was for many of the women in that line the first Black man they had ever encountered, they became deeply committed to the cause of ending South African apartheid. Upon his release from prison, Nelson Mandela invited the Grapefruit Ladies to visit a free South Africa. Sejake returned home, and in fact, the Grapefruit Ladies were honored at Mandela's funeral at his request. What are we supposed to do? This is a question that many of us are asking these days in our minds and our hearts and our prayers and in community. The news is too much. And even when one headline surfaces in our daily news that gives us hope, there are 2 more that call our attention to the deeper lows of what is possible by messy human people in a fractured world. Whether, regardless of politics, it is seeing the release from the White House of a video of a former president and his wife as monkeys, or reading more of the redacted words of newly released files, pages of the Epstein files. I don't know about you, but these little lines between my eyes are growing increasingly furrowed and deep. What is happening in our world? How did we get here? How do we get out? What are we to do? And so we gather in worship and we bring our questions and our fears and our hopes and our needs to church. And we gather at Jesus' feet because just like all of those messy and wounded and questioning people who chased after him, once he saw what he was up to, we gather at Jesus' feet, knowing that he alone will have a word to speak into the real hard stuff of our daily lives. And so we gather at his feet and hear the words he taught to his disciples years ago and the words he teaches to us now. Two words open our text for today: you are. Jesus tells the crowds who are chasing after him in need of healing, you are the salt of the earth. You are the light of the world. You are salt, flavorful, life-sustaining, faithful, persevering. You are light, illuminating, defining, clarifying. Jesus tells all who are gathered atop that mountain that these identity traits are fundamentally present, regardless of what wounds or wishes they carry with them to that mountaintop. You are salt and light. These qualities are fundamental and elemental. They are non-negotiable facts. They define us. Now, Jesus goes on to point out that what one does about this identity, well, that is where things are up for grabs. What one does with this reality of being salt and light is up to them or up to us. One can choose to hide this fact, can put on a costume and pretend we're something else. One can cover the light and shelf the salt, and things in the world can stay the same. Or, Jesus says, we can shine. Now, the tricky part about being salt and light, I think, is that we do not always know how to do it. Some of us might have had an inkling in a former time of life and are just out of practice. We maybe got stuck in the same routines of day-to-day living that have marked our days, and while we know that there's something that we might need to do and we know that that needs to be different, it's hard to place just what that might be. We might feel a pull, but also feel like before we place our lamp on a stand, we need to dust off the shade and replace the bulb and do things to get ready so that our lights can shine. Now, I'm guessing that there are others of us who are overwhelmed by the need. We want to shine brightly, and we will do our part to do so, but we just do not know where to start. Where should we place this stand upon which our light should shine so that the light can reach and penetrate into as much of the darkness in our world as possible? How do we choose, knowing and seeing all of the need and all of the hurt and all of the injustice around us? The deep darkness is everywhere. Where can my little light shine and do the most good? And candidly, some of us just struggle to see that we have light to shine. We've heard so many lies about ourselves, about who we are. We've come to believe those instead of the truth of who we are in Christ Jesus. So sometimes the hard part of living into this identity of being salt and light is that we get stuck in our heads. We let self-doubt and fear hold us back, or we get overwhelmed by our already too long to-do list and can't figure out how we can possibly fit in one more thing. And we want to get it right. We want our best to make a difference for the good. We have seen how so many well-intentioned people have offered help to those who need help, but they've missed the mark. It hasn't quite been what's right. And so we see the reality in the world, and we know how much needs to change. We hear it in our neighborhood, how legal asylum seekers just across a river were arrested and detained while walking their child to school. We've heard the news of people in our own city, especially those with brown and black skin, being profiled while driving home from work. We know and see how systems and people we've trusted to be one way seem to be speaking a different language. And that which has seemed secure or steadfast feels quite unknown. And we hear Jesus sing, or perhaps if you're like me, you've been actually singing the song, which is why I said Jesus sing, "Let your light so shine" from Godspell, and have been wondering, what can I do? Now, I do wish I had a straightforward answer to this question and that there was one map. But frankly, there's more than one. And if we stretch the analogy, I invite you even to look around our own sanctuary and see all of the ways that light is breaking in. There are many different sources of light, literally, that shine in our midst. They work differently. They shine with varying degrees of brightness. They meet different needs. And so it is for us, and perhaps even more so, because there is no one way to shine one's light. The flavor you have to offer this world is unique and particular to you. And that is perhaps as daunting as it is exciting. It's perhaps as limiting as it is freeing. But see, Jesus is clear. When faced with the question of what it is that we are to do, Jesus' answer, the one answer, is we are to do something. We are to do something, to shine our light, to share, to be the salt of the earth. And so I suggest that perhaps a place to start is to simply consider what it is in our day-to-day lives that we will choose to say yes to and choose to say no to. Perhaps we can find some direction from the prophet Isaiah, who encourages all who hear to say no to injustice and oppression and to systems of government and industry and commerce that harm those in the world, especially the most vulnerable. And perhaps we hear then the invitation on the other side of that to say yes to justice, to repair, to feeding those who are hungry, to working together to satisfy the needs of the afflicted. And although there is not one way to do this, perhaps it gives us a way forward, a way that we can try to figure out together, for none of us go it alone. And we step into this world doing our best, offering our meager glimmer of light knowing that God will bless what we offer. Our prayers, our pursuits, any little light we are able to shine in this world, because God is a God who magnifies that light by God's grace and our shared witness so that change can come. You are the light of the world. You are the salt of the earth. May we hold fast to this elemental identity of who we are by God's grace. Let us sit together at Jesus' feet and let us discern together what we might do as individuals and as a family of faith so that our light might shine in a world filled with deep darkness. Let's ask the questions together. Let's explore what's possible in community. And let's not lose heart. After all, look what happened when one store clerk refused to ring up 2 grapefruits 42 years ago. Let's let our light so shine. May it be so, today and always.